戰前進美台新境界，歐布萊恩專訪特別報道。近來美中台關係在美國前總統川普的抗中政策下出現了明顯的變化，而當年他的國安顧問歐布萊恩更是扮演重要的角色。歐布萊恩不僅曾公開批評中國隱匿疫情，更大力宣揚台灣對美國的重要性，提倡美國必須協助台灣擁有軍事自衛能力。而在卸任之後，華府智庫更在今年7月份成立了美台工作小組，也委託了歐布萊恩擔任主席，期盼繼續深化兩國關係。4位重要成員排站，象徵台美關係又往前邁了一大步。華府智庫全球台灣研究中心7月21號宣布成立美台工作小組，其中左邊第2位更曾是川普的左右手，前國安顧問歐布萊恩。
Look, it's a privilege to serve with the president, and we look forward to another year and a half of peace through strength. We've had tremendous foreign policy successes under President Trump's leadership.
2019年，歐布萊恩取代約翰波頓當上川普新任國安顧問，如今卻憑中選成為美台工作小組的主席，願意扛下重擔。他表示十分榮幸，也認為俄烏戰爭後更凸顯確保台灣民主的重要性。畢竟他一路走來都將人權放在首位。
奧布萊恩從2018年5月起擔任美國國務院分管人質事務的總統特使，負責要求別國釋放關押的美國公民。
歐布萊恩從加州大學伯克萊分校畢業後就擔任律師，優異表現跨足政壇，在小布希和奧巴馬政府都擔任過要職。
美媒報道說，奧布萊恩擅長管理團隊，也擅長與人溝通。
在躍升為國安顧問後，歐布萊恩大力推廣川普的抗中理念，尤其在疫情爆發初期，更跳出來抨擊中國隱匿疫情。
Doctors involved were either silenced or put in isolation or that sort of thing, so that the word of this virus could not get out. It probably cost the world community 2 months. To respond.
不止在疫情戳中中國痛處，在最擅長的國安層面，歐布萊恩也宣告世界強權已經覺醒，不會再因為任何原因向中共低頭。
We are the strongest nation on earth, and we will not bend to the CCP, not just for China and Hong Kong and Taiwan, but for the entire world. China's human rights violations have gotten worse and worse over the years, whether it's the Uyghurs or religious minorities or their neighbors, the people who enjoyed democracy in Hong Kong until just recently, the bullying of Taiwan.
用平淡語氣一針見血指控中國的霸道，歐布萊恩可說是川普時期的抗中大將。而特別的是，他多年前曾經待過台北，讓他對這抗中前線的寶島擁有特殊情感。
I've always said weakness is provocative. And if we show weakness to the Chinese or they perceive weakness on our part, it could actually provoke them into attacking Taiwan.
即使卸任，歐布萊恩依舊四處演講，強調美國必須做好最壞的準備，才能協防台灣。即使是彈丸之地，也能利用不對稱作戰抵禦外敵。
But they need to turn themselves into a porcupine. They need to have sea mine capability. They need to have anti-ship missiles. And when they order them, we need to make sure they're at the top of the customer list.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
尤其在拜登鬆口承諾武力保衛台灣後，更證實我們對美國在經濟和國安上至關重要。
The American people need to understand that Taiwan is critically important to us. I'm glad the president got out there ahead of it and told the Chinese that if you do this, there's going to be war.
隨着世界局勢巨變，美中台關係重新排列組合，我國又多了強大盟友，共同守護珍貴的民主自由。Today, we are honored to have the former U.S. National Security Advisor, Rob O'Brien, as our distinguished guest. Ambassador, welcome.
It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. And first, we'd like to start with your latest connection with Taiwan, that you joined Global Taiwan Institute, GTI, in July. And we noticed that there has been a lot of discussion in the think tank community in Washington, D.C. recently about starting U.S.-Taiwan relations and reassessing the relationship between the two sides. Why do you choose GTI among so many think tanks?
Well, Jennifer, GTI, Global Taiwan Institute, is the only think tank in Washington, D.C. that is focused specifically on Taiwan. So while there are a number of great think tanks, Heritage and Hudson and AEI and other Brookings and others, there's only one that's focused on solely on the Taiwan-U.S. relationship, and that's GTI. And so it was a real opportunity for me because of the importance of that relationship between the U.S. and the people of the United States and the people of Taiwan to work with GTI and to be involved in this task force.
Right, but not only join GTI, you also chair GTI U.S.-Taiwan Task Force. What's special about this task force?
Well, there have been a number of task forces that look at the relationship between Taiwan and the United States. Of course, this is a very critical time in the history of Taiwan and the United States as we watch the global threats. We're watching what's happening in Ukraine. We're watching the threats that are being made against the democracy in Taiwan from Beijing. And so it's very important for us in the United States to figure out how do we strengthen our relationship with the people of Taiwan. And so unlike some other task force that focus just on military issues or just on security issues, we'll certainly cover those issues, but we're going to look at all the relationship in its whole: cultural relations, people-to-people relations, relations between how we govern our diplomacy back and forth between Taiwan and the United States, and of course, the security issue as well. But we're going to try and take a holistic, whole-of-government view of the relationship between Taiwan and its people and the people of the United States.
Right. As you mentioned, it's the critical time to Taiwan right now. So the reason why we care about the issue so much is because the trilateral relationship between the U.S., China, and Taiwan changes almost every day. A hot topic affecting the trilateral relationship is Speaker Pelosi's recent visit to Taiwan. What's your take?
Well, my take is that the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives should be able to go wherever she wants. And if she wants to go to Taiwan, she should be able to go to Taiwan. And Taiwan's a democratic country and democratic people, and they have the rule of law, and they're friends of the United States. And there's no reason that Nancy Pelosi shouldn't be able to go visit our friends. And she's not the first speaker to go. About 20 years ago, Speaker Newt Gingrich visited Taiwan. We've had a number of U.S. officials visit Taiwan. So this is something that should just happen in the ordinary course and should not be used as a pretext by Beijing to up the stakes or to create mischief or to ruin the relationship between the U.S. and China or between China and Taiwan. I think this is being used as a pretext. They're making a mountain out of a molehill and attempting to use Speaker Pelosi's visit to create trouble in the relationship, which is unfortunate.
Right, I'm totally agree with you on that. The former National Security Advisor, what is your view on the executive branch's relatively conservative approach to Pelosi's visit to Taiwan?
Well, I think the executive branch is always concerned with the relationship between the U.S. and Beijing, and between Washington and Beijing. That's an important relationship to the United States, and we want to make sure that we don't have a war in the Asia-Pacific region. We want to make sure that our friends in Taiwan aren't attacked. So I think they were being cautious and conservative, but I think at the end of the day, she flew there on a U.S. government airplane. That airplane was provided by President Biden, and so I think there was support for her visit. Because, look, at the end of the day, it should be very easy for people to travel around the world and not be harassed because of where they go, whether it's Taiwan or Beijing or any other place.
Right, and the U.S. attitude is crucial to Taiwan. So faced with the conservative executive branch, what is your advice for Taiwan?
Well, Taiwan needs to turn itself into a porcupine. I wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal with my former chief of staff, Alex Gray, and we outlined a number of steps that Taiwan needs to take. For many, many years, Taiwan has not spent enough of its GDP on defense. And Taiwan's a wealthy country. It's a very advanced country technologically, and it needs to invest in its defense. And it's not just so that it can defend against an invasion like the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but it's to deter China from even engaging in the invasion. So Taiwan needs to buy sea strike, quick strike sea mines. It needs to buy naval strike missiles. It needs to buy Javelin missiles and Stingers, which have been so useful to Ukraine in fending off the Russians. And then the people of Taiwan need to prepare. And one of the things that I've recommended is that Taiwan have shooting clubs. And I know that gun ownership and gun use is a complicated issue in Taiwan. But if you watch what's happening in Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, the people are learning how to shoot, and they're learning how to use firearms to defend themselves. And again, that's a deterrent. If the Chinese know that behind every door in every town and village and city and neighborhood in Taiwan, there's somebody with a gun, they're going to think twice about invading. And hopefully they will never invade.
Right.
But we have to deter them.
Sorry. So since you mentioned porcupine strategy, another thing that caught worldwide attention is China has carried out serious military drills around Taiwan right after Pelosi's visit. So how would that affect the trilateral relationship between the U.S., China, and Taiwan, according to your opinion?
Well, again, I think that China overreached here. I think China showed its true face here with these military exercises that serve no purpose. Everyone knows that Beijing has a big military. Everyone knows that it has a capable navy, but it's being viewed as a bully, just like Russia is being viewed by the whole world as a bully in Ukraine. China didn't help itself with these exercises, but again, it shows the desperate need of the people of Taiwan to spend the money, to have a defense budget that's big enough, and to buy the equipment they need to deter China from doing that sort of an exercise, or to deter China from an actual invasion.
Right, we have seen what happened in Ukraine. But speaking of the cross-strait relations, you once said that China might attack Taiwan in 2024. Do you still believe that, and why?
Well, I do. I'm concerned about it, and what the form that attack takes, we don't know. It could be the outer islands of Guinea and Matsu. It could be a naval blockade. It could be some sort of economic blockade or economic sanctions that China attempts to use against Taiwan in an effort to coerce Taiwan into a one country, two systems. But of course, everybody in Taiwan is smart. They watched what happened in Hong Kong, and they watched what the promise of a one country, two systems meant to Hong Kong, and they understand it's a lie. Just like it was a lie in Hong Kong, it would be a lie with respect to Taiwan. But Admiral Davidson, our former commander of PACOM, was a great admiral, said that he thought it was a 7-year window. I think that window has gotten smaller, and I think China might attempt to coerce Taiwan or even invade Taiwan prior to the time that President Biden leaves office in 2024.
Right, we're hoping the day won't come, but we have to do the best preparation. So as tensions rise in the Taiwan Strait, you had proposed the concept of a porcupine strategy. So do you agree or suggest that the U.S. should abandon strategic ambiguity?
Well, I think that the proper form of strategic ambiguity can work. And President Biden has now said 3 times that the United States will defend Taiwan if it's attacked. He's been very forward-leaning on that. Now, his staff has come out later and said, no, he didn't mean that, and there's no change in policy. But it seems very clear in President Biden's mind, at least, that the U.S. will defend Taiwan in an attack. And I think that creates some uncertainty for the Communist Party of China in Beijing. They have to be very concerned if they engage in an offensive action against Taiwan that the U.S. will get involved. And although China's gotten bigger and more powerful, the U.S. still has a few tricks up its sleeve, and they should be very careful about a potential shooting war with the United States of America.
Right. So when it comes to the relationship between the U.S. and Taiwan, what are some notable changes in recent years from your point of view?
Well, I think we had a number of visits. Keith Krach, who will be on the task force as an Undersecretary of State, came and visited Taiwan during the Trump administration. We recently had our ambassador, I believe the ambassador to Palau, visited Taiwan in the Biden administration. So I think you're seeing more visits of that nature. I can tell you one of the things I appreciated very much is at the outset of COVID, we were short on masks. And even at the White House, we were short on masks. And the Taiwanese embassy brought thousands of masks to the White House for my National Security Council staff to use, and for our veterans, and for the hospitals in Washington. So that relationship goes both ways. It's not just the United States helping Taiwan. In the outset of COVID, Taiwan helped the United States, and we were grateful for that. So I think you're seeing closer relationships, people-to-people relationships, and also government-to-government relationships between the United States and Taiwan, and that's a welcome development.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to do that. But faced with the Chinese threat, do you think what kind of preparation should we make, or for now, to prepare for the Chinese threat?
Well, it's the same things I talked about earlier. I think that Taiwan is building submarines, so those need to be sped up, that production. Maybe some torpedo boats, some more smaller craft that can defend Taiwan. Certainly acquiring the right types of weapons to deter or defend against an amphibious assault. The naval strike missile that's made by Raytheon and Kongsberg, a Norwegian company and an American company. would be helpful. Those are things that would push back against the Chinese and let them know that it would not be an easy venture to take over Taiwan. And I think, again, part of it is the will of the Taiwanese people. I think if they understand that the Taiwanese people are not going to roll over, but that the Taiwanese people are going to stand up for their democracy and for their freedom and fight against an invasion, that's something that will make Xi Jinping and the Communist Party think twice.
Right, we have to show them our strong will. And last but not least, after leaving public office, you have been elected chairman of the board of the Nixon Foundation. But it is well known that President Nixon was the first U.S. president to visit China. In your new role as the chairman of the Nixon Foundation, how will you help Americans understand the Chinese threat to the U.S.?
Well, I think we've seen an evolution of that threat. So early on, when President Nixon went to China and through the Deng years and the Hu Jintao years and many years, China and the U.S. were able to work cooperatively. And people in the West thought that as China got richer and became more prosperous, that it would also become more democratic and more liberal. But unfortunately, we've seen under Chairman Xi, he's really confirmed that he's a Marxist-Leninist, and China seeks to exert control not just over Taiwan, not just over Hong Kong, not just over Tibet, but also over India. And even in America, if people speak out against China, there's threats like with the NBA, there are threats against companies and against universities. And so China is seeking to dominate the world in a way that, and the Chinese Communist Party is seeking to control the world in a way we've never seen before. Not even the Soviets tried to do this. So we need to educate people about that threat. But hopefully at the same time, the Chinese will realize that this sort of overreach has created a backlash. And the rest of the world isn't going to want to trade with China, and isn't going to want to work with China, and isn't going to want to be cooperative with China if it continues to behave in this fashion. And so hopefully there's some give and take in that relationship, and China will realize that dominating the world is not the best course for China, but building a prosperous, peaceful China is the best way for China.
Indeed. Thank you, Ambassador. You have given us so much insight and knowledge about these issues. We are truly grateful for your time and the opportunity to interview you. Thank you.